Jason here from Now Spinning Magazine with another unboxing video, and this time we're going into the world and realms of pure, extreme heavy metal as we look at Celtic Frost and Danse Macabre, the new box set from BMG, which contains 5 albums, including their avant-garde masterpiece, Into the Pandemonium. So let's dive in and have a look and see what's inside. So this is Celtic Frost, Danse Macabre, new box set, deluxe box set from BMG Records, and this includes 5 albums, 40-page booklet, a badge, a brooch, a poster, and is fantastic for bringing these 5 albums together in one place. A little sticky label on the front I've put on the side here. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it just basically talks about the fact that it contains the albums from 1984 to 1987, Morbid Tales, Mega Therion, Into the Pandemonium, Empress Return EP, first time on CD, and Rehearsal CD, 40-page book with interviews with all the band, and a Union fan club badge, and Danse Macabre woven patch, and a double-sided poster. Here is the double-sided poster, first of all, with a picture of the band on one side and another picture of the band on the other side as well. There is a 40-page booklet, softback book, and this goes through the entire history of the band. These 2 guys from Switzerland, made such a name for themselves in this area of heavy metal, in this time when 1984 was the year of, for many people in the UK, was Bon Jovi, Rat, Dokken, and all these kind of melodic rock bands, and coming out of Switzerland was this really extreme metal force, coming out of a place that hadn't been known for this kind of music. The imagery, for those of you looking in from the outside, is typical of its time, but as you read this book, these guys were very young, 21, early, in teenagers, and they had a mission of what they wanted to accomplish. They'd written down what they wanted to do from the early days of Hellhammer, when they demoed stuff and they weren't quite sure what the next direction was, and Celtic Frost was their vision. They literally put down a business plan of what they were going to do, what they were going to come up with, each album, what it was going to be called, the design, everything about them was put down like military precision. And this booklet goes through the entire history of this period of the band, and every member is interviewed, and it also goes into the kind of background, the times when the drummer wasn't involved, or they had issues with girlfriends, or it took their kind of eye went off the ball and they went on to different things, and it's very very honest. It's not kind of just glossing over and saying, looking back and making everything was fantastic. It talks about, what was going on, the interrelationships between the band, what they were trying to achieve, and the things that went wrong and things that didn't. The other thing about this band is, if you're thinking they were just influenced by new wave of British heavy metal and the kind of thrash bands that came later, they obviously influenced that movement, is that they were listening to people like Susie and the Banshees, Christian Death, Dead Can Dance, obviously stuff like Slayer and Exodus, and the way they mixed all this together, which is especially true on their main album, which it was seen as almost like an avant-garde art rock thrash album, which I'll show you in a minute. So that's the booklet, which I think is absolutely brilliant. This is their first album, which is really much with its feet, both of its feet, in the new wave of British heavy metal. And I have to say, because of that, because of the riffage, the way that the songs will have like multiple riffs in one track and go off, and lots of semitones and lots of Sabbathy type stuff, and again, the new wave of British heavy metal, this album, first one, Morbid Tales, is probably the one, I have to say, that I really really like. This one was the EP Emperor's Return, first time on CD, gatefold sleeve. And this was the first one to feature Reid St. Mark on drums, who's a fantastic drummer. His background wasn't extreme metal at all. They didn't really want to put this out, so some of these tracks were double ups from what had gone before, but it's great to have it on CD. This one is seen as their first real proper album, and it's not actually the one that's my favourite, although for fans it probably comes very, very close to the one that people like. And this is one where the kind of the two friends that had formed the band had kind of split at this point for personal reasons, and it's great. It's got to me, a different type of sound, but it isn't the one that I play the most. But just purely for this unboxing video, this is a nice gatefold sleeve. All the artwork is there, and again you have a studio jam as well. This is probably the most controversial one, but I think the one which really sums up where metal could go, especially this kind of metal, with the vision that these guys had. Gatefold sleeve, because on this album you've got female vocals, you've got orchestras, you've got Middle Eastern rhythms and percussion. There's so much going on in this album. It is, of course, Into the Pandemonium, in case you couldn't see that on the footage, but it's probably their masterpiece. But it also would have caused a fair bit of controversy at the time because of the way it wasn't just, thrash metal, as people were kind of expecting them to go. This is the other thing about heavy metal, is that once you got down in specific routes, it was very hard to do anything that was slightly different. And I think I have full admiration for the band for doing this. Then you've got the demo CD, the rehearsals, the Grave Hill Bunker rehearsals, gatefold sleeve with the lyrics, etc. Then there's a little pin badge. And finally, for those of you who are still looking out for getting your new denim jacket, a patch to stick on the front of that. And that is the Celtic Frost Danse Macabre box set. So that is Danse Macabre by Celtic Frost, a new box set, deluxe edition from BMG, which, as you saw, contains Morbid Tales, Mega Therion, Into the Pandemonium, Emperor's Return, which was originally EP, first time on CD, and the Grave Hill Bunker rehearsals. The albums that I like by them, and again remember from my vintage what was going on around me in 1984 when this band first appeared, was, especially in the UK, was Rat, Bon Jovi, Dokken, Europe, in melodic rock, what we saw as heavy metal, at that time were those bands. And to think that these guys in Switzerland had been tweaking their control panels after immersing themselves in probably nothing but the new wave of British heavy metal, especially for their first album, really comes to the fore. And that first album is one of my favourites, especially the way that the riffs, and there's a youthful exuberance about it. They were really young guys, coming up with a riff and then stopping and starting and going to another riff and then thinking, I've got this other riff, we could stick that there and go to that one, then we could speed up and then could slow down, and then we could put some more riffs in with a few more semitones in. And that first album captures all of that. And I think that because in Britain, the new wave of British heavy metal was in the rearview mirror by 1984, but obviously in different parts of the world people were still discovering it. But the fact is that the guys behind Celtic Frost were listening to Susie and the Banshees, Dead Can't Dance, Morbid Angel, all sorts of different stuff were poured in, which is why when we get to Into the Pandemonium, that album, which must have really confused a lot of purist heavy metalers, thrash metalers, again, who are coming up through Slayer and Exodus and all these type of music bands, is that album, which has like orchestras on it, female vocals, ethnic rhythms and kind of world music mixed in with the riffs and the aggressive vocals, must have confused some of them. But this is the key thing about what makes a real heavy metal band live on and last. And I think it is having that courage to try different things out and have a game plan. And the other thing about this band, as I said when I went through the box set, is they planned everything. It was like a business plan, and they were, you know, it's young kids. So, but anyway, it's, as you've seen, it's a great box set, and if you're into this brand and thread and furrow of metal, then check it out, and I'm sure you'll like it. Now, thank you very much to all my patrons, especially Yogi, Clive, Chris and Andy, and everyone who supports me and shares my videos, and it's, you know, really appreciated. Stay safe. Remember, music is the healer. Play it loud, keep spinning those discs, and I shall see you on my next video.